What's going on, Internet? This is the Fifth Down NFL newsletter. If it's your first time here, please consider subscribing. We love talking football. We're going to try to keep it mostly positive. We are coming off of a heater. I'm going to test, like my wife always says, whenever something good happens to you, you get arrogant. You start talking a little shit. I was 5-0 last week in my bets, and I'm not feeling super confident about the 13-game slate I had to pick from this week, but I got another 5. We'll get to that. The game of the week, Mike and I have made that, the Chargers and the Chiefs, whether you like it or not. That'll be Fifth Down. We'll be talking about that. Before we get into First Down, Mike, I saw that Sterling Sharp is a finalist for the MVP. And I have long said that without injuries, I think that he's one of the best wide receivers that I've ever seen in the NFL. 7 years, 8,500 yards. The man just crushed it. He was first team All-Pro when Jerry Rice was in the league. Do you have a player like that you've watched that you're like, man, I hope they make it into the Hall of Fame?
Keenan Allen, maybe. Phillip Rivers. I mean, those guys are pretty high up there on the list. I know Antonio Gates is going to get into the Hall of Fame, but he missed out on being a first ballot Hall of Famer as the leader in all stats a tight end's ever put up. Just strange. But it is interesting because every time I think of Sterling Sharp, I think of that one quote from Shannon Sharp, where Shannon Sharp was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he goes, "The craziest part is I'm not even the best Sharp to ever play football. That's my brother, whose career got ended early."
Yes, he's not. I think he said, "I'm not even the best Sharp in my own family."
There you go. Yeah, that's the exact quote.
Player in my own family. And if we're being honest, he's being honest, right?
Yeah.
He's not being modest in that moment. Sterling Sharp was. He was the best player I had seen, and this is great because we're talking about a Packer, until Kelvin Johnson showed up in the NFL. And that's what we got for First Down here. Game of the week, we are a little, a little less than 24 hours away from Thursday Night Football, and they got this game right. We have what here? 9-3 versus 11-1 on Thursday night. The Lions lost this game last Thanksgiving at home. Lions coming off of it feels like every week the Lions get stronger somehow, but the injury report, the injured reserve list just grows. And Malcolm Rodriguez is lost in that game. Packers, coming off of another win, had to have it on Thanksgiving. That was one of our picks. We took the Dolphins, to not cover there, or took the Packers to cover, however you want to look at it. Just give me, before we pick the game, what are your thoughts? Green Bay, Detroit, NFC North. What do you got for this one?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun game. Usually on Thursday night, I'm not too excited for the game. They usually put out a lopsided matchup, or we get a situation where we don't know who's going to play in the game going into it. A bunch of guys are on the injury report, and it's Thursday, so we're not going to find out until kickoff. And I've always been an advocate of getting rid of Thursday Night Football because I want to see the best teams play each other at their best. I don't want to see a 50% team take on a 75% team, which happens a lot. But this one is great because I think it's going to be a real slobber knocker, as my friend good old JR would say. Packers running the ball very efficiently, showing that it's worth it to kind of give a performance-based maxed out deal to a running back. Josh Jacobs' contract is masterful by the Packers. I think for both sides, honestly, but mostly for the Packers. And I think on the other side of the ball, you're obviously going to see the Lions run it as they've been doing all season long. So I think it's going to be a real physical matchup between these two teams. We wouldn't want it any other way between division rivals down the stretch of the season. But this is the Packers' only chance at stealing the division from the Lions down the stretch. The Lions can almost win the division with a victory, it feels like, over Green Bay. I know Minnesota is still kind of in the picture, but I don't look at Minnesota as the same tier as these two teams.
It's so funny that you say that because I think that that's sort of the sentiment overall, and I completely disagree. I just think the way that the defense is playing for them, and they're figuring out how to win a lot of these games, and now Sam Darnold is coming back. They were down 13 points in that game. I think the stat that I heard was 20-something times in Sam Darnold's career he's been down 13 points, and this was the first time he ever got the win. So, like,
such a great stat, Tony, to help the case.
It's not a great. That's a reflection of him playing for the Jets.
Be better, yeah.
The Jets and the Panthers for all those years.
Well, I worry that the Vikings defense, because when it gets down to the playoffs, we're going to get a lot of just man on man, and it's going to come down to just beating the person across from. And I think when we get into the playoffs, the Vikings defense is going to get a little bit more exposed. And then in the backfield, Minnesota doesn't really have the same consistency that these two teams have to win late in the season like this, and Minnesota's going to have to go on the road and probably play Detroit, right, to get anywhere in the playoffs. I don't know, man.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear a lot of the people on the internet and TV talking about it. There's just something about when you watch the Vikings that
anything can happen. It does feel like anything can happen because their offense, their passing offense especially, is up there with the best in the NFL. They could definitely put up points, and in a hurry, like you're saying, he didn't have Justin Jefferson for all those other games.
I mean, that's it's a nice to have the highest paid non-quarterback.
I want Daniel Jones to get in there just to prove that I'm right about Sam Darnold. Daniel Jones is going to be good in the pocket there too.
Don't you wish that on me? Don't you wish that on me, Ricky Bobby? Or however that quote goes. Let's stay focused on the game that's on Thursday Night Football because it's going to be in Detroit. I think that the Lions, well, they're losing all these people on defense. Like there is like Aaron Glenn is still just coaching his ass off, and the aggressiveness is still there. The Za'Darius Smith move has really seemed to work out nicely for them. One of the things I saw this week, and I don't know if you saw it, but I was like, oh, this is a sign for Mike to just jump ship if he's even on the Lions bandwagon. But they signed Jamal Adams to the practice squad, and I was like, that's where they're at. Is like you go through the list, and it's like Melifonwu, obviously Aiden Hutchinson's on there. Even special teamers like Khalif Raymond is such a big part of that return game, and extra wide receiver. He's out. I always mess up his name, but I think it's Onwuzurike or whatever, defensive lineman. He's on the list. I just poured through Derek Barnes, just the names on their injured reserve list. It's like starting contributing members on the defense, and somehow they're still balling on that side of the ball. I'm going to give my prediction for this game is going to be 26-24 for the Detroit Lions. I think they're going to figure out a way on a short week to be able to get this, maybe get a careless play from Jordan Love in this game. I didn't dive into like whether or not Jair Alexander is going to be out there. He is on limited practices when I was looking through the injury report, but it's just taking the Lions at home. That home field advantage has become a real thing. And I don't think anybody wants to play there. They know what it is. Dan Campbell's talking about this needing to be, that they're already in playoff football. I think he understands that. I think we're going to see the Lions stand up and say, yeah, this is running through us. And if we have to be 15, 16-1 this year to have home field advantage throughout the playoffs, we're going to have it this year.
Yeah, and I was saying it a few weeks ago that I could see the Lions potentially winning out when I was looking at their schedule. With this game being one of those games that are a real threat, the main reason that I said that, and I believe in the Lions so much, is that they've shown this season and even last year too that they can win in any way. It's almost come down to where, like, if Jared Goff throws 5 interceptions, we could still win the game. So can we win the game without Malcolm Rodriguez in the field and all these other injuries? I believe in Detroit to be able to surmount all obstacles if they surmount prime, 2019 Jared Goff showing up on the field. So I think that the Lions are a team that is on an unstoppable path right now, and I have confidence as well, Tony. I'm taking Detroit.
I love it. It's a weird world to live in where the NFC North is like filled with powerhouses, and at the top of that list is the Detroit Lions. It's like I said, like my grandfather, 94 years old, I'm getting pictures of him on Thanksgiving getting ready to go watch the game in like a throwback Lions t-shirt from like the 90s that I remember him getting for Christmas like so many years ago. And he's still rocking it, and he loves it. He loves Lions football. when I was a kid.
It is kind of a bizarre world because growing up as a kid, I'm used to the Bills absolutely sucking, the Commanders or Redskins back in the day absolutely just being a piss poor organization, even when they would get good players. And that's all life right there. It's all just going to keep going in circles like this.
Yeah, well, some things, never really change, and I'm sorry to bring this up because the Jets, right? The Jets are in a situation where it's like we all were in the offseason thinking that even if it wasn't Super Bowl, it still wouldn't be what it is. Like they had a 21-point lead in that game. And so this is what I want to talk about here without like going like crazy into detail, but like there's a lot of conversation this week about like, should the Jets bench Aaron Rodgers? And then it was like, we saw Kirk Cousins in the Chargers game. Should the Falcons bench Kirk Cousins? And then Justin Tucker's missing kicks. And it's like, should the Ravens on their bye week be looking for another kicker? Like these are notable names. Two of these guys, I think Tucker and Rodgers are both going to the Hall of Fame. And the Ravens are in a playoff race. Like for the Jets, it's like, do you really bench Aaron Rodgers for Tyrod Taylor? Like, winning the games makes a difference. Like, just let the legend. I don't know, Mike. Where are you at with like the list of players that I just gave you? Like, play them, start them, go through what your thoughts are on those three notable, some Hall of Fame names there.
Well, I don't think the Jets can bench Aaron Rodgers. That doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. I think the writing's on the wall, though, for sure. With even just this talk and all the other talk I've seen around Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, Aaron Rodgers is not going to be a Jet next year. Like, this is literally going down the exact same way it went down with Brett Favre. And I can't even believe that I'm seeing it happen again. Like, that's how similar it has been to the freaking T with these two. And Rodgers could potentially find himself a free agent next year. I think from the Jets' perspective, you should continue put Aaron Rodgers on the field for the plain fact that fans like me will go all the way to San Francisco just to say I saw Aaron Rodgers play before the end of his career, because that is the only reason to even turn a Jets game on your TV, let alone attend the game in freaking person. Like, I'm going to be in New York in a few weeks here, and I would like to go to a Jets or Giants game, but I'm not going to go if Aaron Rodgers isn't playing. So there's a perfect example why the Jets should keep Aaron Rodgers in. Like you said, what's the point of benching him unless you really are tanking for draft position? But is Tyrod Taylor going to help them win more?
I do. I think that might be the case actually right now.
So don't bench Aaron Rodgers. The Justin Tucker thing is an interesting situation because Justin Tucker is one of the most clutch kickers of all time. And the Ravens benching him or cutting him and going to a different kicker is basically them admitting that they think he's done and that he's washed. And if he goes to another team and kicks for them in the playoffs, it is just going to look absolutely terrible on the Ravens' part. I think you keep Justin Tucker and you have some confidence in a guy to be able to figure it out. I don't know what's going on with Jay Tuck. I don't know if he's lost it. Kickers don't usually just wake up and suck. I think it's all a mental thing. And I think he's going to get over it, whether it's in Baltimore or somewhere else.
Yeah, it's interesting. Kirk Cousins.
Oh, this is tough. This is tough because I think that right now you put Michael Penix Jr. on the field with this Atlanta offense, it'll provide instant spark with just what he can do both down the field and as a runner with the football. But when we do get to the playoffs, now you're going to have the disadvantage of a rookie with a month of experience playing because the Falcons are leading the division right now. And I think that they're going to surprise people this week as well and in the last couple of weeks of the season. Like, when we get to the playoffs, I still think Kirk Cousins will be a better option for their run. So I'll keep Kirk Cousins in as well. So I'm saying no to benching all three of these guys for very different reasons. And if Justin Tucker continues to shank kicks as we head into the playoffs, maybe you make that decision right before the playoffs. But if I was the Ravens, they're not really, I don't think they're going to win the division. I think the Steelers have kind of proven that they're going to win this thing out down the road for the division. Let's just try and figure it out with Justin Tucker before we get there.
I'm In agreement with you on all of them. I was a little shocked to hear any of the benching talk, right? Because, like, I know Cousins hasn't looked great. He didn't look good before the bye week against the Broncos. He did not look great against the Chargers in that situation. But I think that you gave him all this money because of you wanted to give that quarterback a year. And if your team still has a shot at the division and at the playoffs, like, I would continue to be in that situation. Now Cousins looks bad again. He's in Minnesota this week. I do think that's a tough situation. If they get where the Bucs start rolling and they have like a 2-game lead and you want to try and jumpstart, spark something, give Kirk time off or whatever it is, then yeah, maybe. But right now, like, just seeing some of the comments I saw about Kirk, I was like, wait, isn't this the franchise that was like backing like Desmond Ridder and like
MPJ gives them a more high-flying, explosive offense, but it doesn't necessarily fix anything.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt weird. And then the Aaron Rodgers thing just didn't make any sense when I was like, wait, why are we? No, let's watch the end of an all-time great quarterback there. And I think that I misspoke earlier. I said they had a 21-point lead. I think they were up 21-7, and then the game ended 26-21. I text you guys after I finished watching, I do the rewatch of certain games. That was one that I picked this week. The first half special teams by the Seahawks was some of the sloppiest, worst special teams I've ever seen. Multiple fumbles on kick returns and that ended up going to the Jets, giving them great field position. Blocked extra points in this game, like just absolutely other major returns. I just watched it. I'm like, this is terrible. Like, it's really bad.
Do you think Rodgers? Oh, you say the Tucker one is the toughest. Yeah. I was gonna say, do you think Rodgers is cool with going out on this season, or do you think he's just gonna play for legacy purposes and try and join some stacked roster and just Brady this thing out?
You're asking me if I think this is how Rodgers wants to go out.
No, do you think that Rodgers is gonna retire?
No, I think that he might end up in one of those situations where it's like, who needs like a mercenary type thing, where it's like, who needs a guy, who needs somebody to come in.
Russell Wilson.
Yes, at this time where it's like the money's right and the situation's right, and you give it a shot with a veteran that could be. Because I do think that like there is something about going to an organization that functions properly, and you can still get good football out of certain veterans. And I think that Russell Wilson just has a little bit more in the tank, a little bit more that he's fighting for and that he's engaged with and everything there. But I just think that Rodgers clearly hears all the conversation. And if the right situation presented itself, I think that he'd be down for some more ball. And that's good. It's good to have entertaining games to watch. Because if that game like is Tyrod Taylor and Geno Smith, I'm probably not turning that game on to rewatch, even though that I picked the Seahawks as one of my picks last week. The Tucker one though, I mean, this guy, the game that he won, and I wish that I would have looked up the numbers. Remember when he beat the Lions a few years ago? Like just stole that from them, that like
66 yarders.
Yeah, just bouncing off the middle post and then bouncing in, and everybody's going crazy. And it's like, he's officially the greatest kicker of all time. Like move over out of it. I have a hard time believing that a Harbaugh is not going to ride out the situation with his guy. And I think that the rest of the team knows and has faith that he will figure it out too. That these kicks will start ending up between the two yellow posts. I do think that there is something to like, hey, bring in somebody just to light a little spark. Let's put a little competition. Let's put a little fear in his heart and see if that doesn't like motivate him, but never really seriously consider replacing the best kicker of a generation. So I just thought it was interesting. I wanted to see what you thought. I'm curious as to what other fans think. That's why the comments are there. Go ahead, put that.
With the Super Bowl on the line, I'm still taking Tucker to hit that freaking kick over a lot of other kickers, man. I still would. I still would have full faith in him after what I've seen, especially as if I was a Ravens fan, seeing that for all that time. You have to have confidence. I wish that they would just let us in on like what is it, man? We can see what's going on with Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers. They're starting to fall off the wagon a little bit. But what is it that happened to Tucker? It's so night and day. Is it an injury? Because that would explain a lot if he has an injury that we don't know about.
I mean, maybe, but you just got to think like,
did they switch holders? Did they switch snappers? Like, what is it?
But just how all the other positions start to lose ability, it's not any different for kicker. Like, I
understand, but
we take it for granted because so many of these kickers now are just money from like 50, 60 yards. Brandon Aubrey looks like he's not even trying on some of these like 40-something yard kicks.
Dicker.
Yeah.
Freaking leg. Yeah.
And so but at a certain point, the ability starts to go, right? The muscle groups, the everything, like you just can't do it forever. Like Morton Anderson at the end of his career. There's an old name. There's an oldie but a goodie. Let's go to third down. Coach of the year. This was like, so I was looking at all the odds, like seeing it if there's anybody that's out there, like who's really doing the job to win coach of the year, right? I think Kevin Stefanski was the coach of the year last year, and that was
no, I think it was Dan.
It was who?
It was Dan Campbell, wasn't it?
No, I think it was Kevin Stefanski won coach of the year last year because he had like 5 quarterbacks, like the Flacco situation got him in. I think it was Stefanski. The internet will let me know if I'm an idiot. I don't think it was Dan Campbell last year.
I'll look it up.
But so I'm going through and it's like
it was Stefanski.
Pulling up these odds. Yeah, because I remember it was like there was a bunch of stuff where there was somebody else that they wanted coach of the year for, and I think it might have been Dan Campbell, and then they wanted DeMar Hamlin as comeback player of the year, but it went to Joe Flacco, and it's like, what did Joe
that, by the way, Mike called that, but
yeah.
Mike predicted that one.
Yeah, we're not getting into that because that leads to a long
give it to him this year. Comeback player of the second year.
Enough.
He's like a Pro Bowl safety now. Where was this last year?
I think they were scared. I don't want to climb down the DeMar.
Yeah, we'll continue on the coach of the year.
Coach of the year. Dan Campbell is the favorite as of right now, but Mike Tomlin right behind him, Kevin O'Connell, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, Dan Quinn. Now I look at this, it's like the Lions were favored to kind of be doing what they were doing. Like, that doesn't seem like he is coaching through a lot of injuries and stuff like that. To me, this comes down to like Mike Tomlin making a switch when they're 4-2 or whatever they are with Justin Fields at that point, or 4. I forget what their record was. I think they were 4-2, and they make the switch to Russell Wilson at that point for quarterback. And then now the team is taken off, going to win one of the tougher divisions in football, it looks like. And then Sean Payton, what he's done with Bo Nix and a roster that like the average fans weren't really familiar with it. But like you look at it and it's like, how can you not be impressed watching this Denver Broncos team, what Vance Joseph has done with the defense, what he's done with that. And then lastly, Dan Quinn, another place. It seems like Adam Peters needs to be in that executive of the year conversation. Dan Quinn, coach of the year conversation, like making sure that they're right up at the top. What? Go ahead, Mike.
I was looking at the odds for this, and I was kind of shocked, actually, Tony. Has Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs disqualified Andy Reid from this award?
Yes, 100%.
Like he's just out. Like he's not even in the fucking top 10 of odds to win this award.
For all those years, Belichick never got to be part of the conversation, and he'd be 14-2 or whatever every year. Tony Dungy didn't get to be part of the conversation many years. Like when you have the guy, you don't get
a consideration
coaching that he does. Yeah.
I think that this award should go to Dan Campbell, especially now knowing that he didn't win it last year. I was under the impression that he actually won it last year for some reason. I had a brain fart, I guess. I remember all the talks of him winning it, but then it went to Stefanski instead. I think to go even further on the lines and what's been most impressive with Dan Campbell, I didn't expect it to work out. And my thought process in not expecting it to work out, Dan Campbell being this rah-rah type of coach, it seems like all talk, no results, things like that. He kind of like made me look like an idiot with his coordinator hires. And that is something that has been so underrated with the Lions. It's why I think that they're so good to this day is Campbell's ability to build maybe the best staff in football, at least the top 3 coaching staff in football, and then keep it together for multiple seasons without either of these guys leaving. He has 2 coordinators that will both be up, at least get interviews for head coaching jobs again this year for the 2nd straight season. So I think all of that, Dan Campbell has to win coach of the year for multiple years of work that he's put in, not just what the Lions are doing this season. I like the other guys that you mentioned. I think Kevin O'Connell deserves a shout out just because, we didn't expect Sam Darnold to be this good. What you said about Sean Payton with the rookie quarterback, amazing. Jim Harbaugh's turnaround with the Chargers, but this is the 2-coach race in my opinion. I think the other one's Mike Tomlin also. And I think every year he proves that his model is going to consistently win every single season, no matter which players are even on the field executing this. And to go even further go further back to the decision to go from Justin Fields to Russell Wilson, their original starter, let's talk about what a coaching job it takes to pivot your offense from Russell Wilson to Justin Fields 4 weeks before week 1. I mean, that seems like an almost impossible task to at least do it and be successful starting week 1. So I think that little notch right there is almost more impressive than him making the decision. Yeah, we're going to go to the guy that we planned to be the quarterback all offseason, was the ability to have the offense not skip a beat with a massive downgrade in experience, a massive downgrade in passing ability to Justin Fields, something that he went from Russell Wilson to a completely opposite, different quarterback and without a beat. So I think it's between those 2 coaches. I will give the Dan Campbell for multiple years of work. I also believe Mike Tomlin, I just assume, has to have won this award at some point in his career. So let's get someone else on the board. I think, no, he hasn't?
Never won the award.
Now I'm switching. Give it to Mike Tomlin. Give it to Dan Campbell next year.
I'm pretty sure that he's never been named coach of the year.
How do you not win coach of the year when your 19-year-old quarterback wins the Super Bowl?
Who won it that was a weird.
I don't think he was actually 19, but I feel like Ben Roethlisberger was like 2 years old, won the Super Bowl, and Mike didn't win it that year.
No, I forget who it was, but he took over a really good team from Cowher and has just never let up. Like the Steelers organization is just one of the most well-run organizations of all time. And
all sports.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely fantastic. The last name here, and I know that I made the comment about when you have the guy, it's tough to win, but Sean McDermott, if you look at like his side of the ball defensively, like they lost a lot of veterans to free agency, both of those safeties back there. And then Milano goes down early. He was back out there this week with that like bionic arm brace, which was really nice to see for the Bills. But I think that some of the transitions they've had offensively, defensively, and having this team on pace to potentially be the 1 seed in the AFC, I think you can get some pretty nice odds on him winning coach of the year. And I think that he's going to be in that sort of 5, tier coach situation.
That's a good take too, because I really did not expect the Bills defense to be good this year. I thought that was going to be their weakness. I thought they were going to be a team going through similar things that the Bengals are going through.
They draft well, and then he coaches up the defense so well every single year. And it's like, it doesn't really matter. Like through injuries, it's like the next guy up. And then you're like, wait, they have him too? Like this guy's a baller too? That's why one of the puzzling things to me is that Kaiir Elam has never worked out there. Because I thought he was going to be a really good DB. And for whatever reason, he just hasn't turned into the talent that we saw in college or like coming into the league. Because everybody else just seems to thrive when they get in proximity of Sean McDermott as a coach.
All right, Kaiir Elam's a whole other rant for me. I'm right about everything, though, by the way.
That's what it's good. It's good to be 100%. It's good to be 100%. Speaking of 100%, really going to test out this theory. Let's get Pop the Collar and get cocky. 5-0 last week. Little mock neck. Looked like a fucking douchebag. Okay. 5-0. As a show, we were 8-1 Mike was 3-1. I was 5-0 last week on picks against the spread. And this week was a little bit tougher as we got into it because there's only 13 games. Last week we had the benefit of picking from 16. Those extra 3 games I really do think help when you're narrowing it down. I've gone first every week in this. Do you want to continue that tradition? Would you like to go first this week?
I go first. Yeah, I go first. We usually line up on at least one game. So,
all right.
There we go. We'll start us off here with my picks this week. Did you tell them I went 3-1? I went 3-1 last week.
3-1, yes. And I believe you are like 13-8. You are 5 games above 500 on the season. You're absolutely on fire right now.
That's amazing. That's what I'm saying, guys. And the one team that I failed on was picking the Chiefs to cover. So by proxy of that, and by proxy of this team, this underrated team going into KC and catching these sleepy Giants, give me the Chargers as my first pick on Sunday Night Football to win that game. They are underdogs, so it does not matter the spread. They're just going to win the game outright. My next one, I have the Cincinnati Bengals covering against the Cowboys. And everyone that's been tuned into the program is probably like, Mike, wait, you just took the Cowboys the last 2 weeks as one of your, shocking picks that no one expected to land. Well, now I'm going the other way. Cowboys building up some confidence the last couple of weeks. Cincinnati Bengals just playing like a pissed off, desperate team. I think this is a huge mismatch between the Bengals passing attack and the Cowboys secondary. Micah Parsons is not going to be able to get to Burrow in time, and they're going to cover. They're going to win by a touchdown plus. It's minus 5.5 for the Bengals on the road. So Vegas agrees with me that this game is not going to be close. I have the Bills covering against the Rams as well. A similar game where I just think it's a bad mismatch for the Rams defense to handle Josh Allen. And we saw a game a couple years ago in week 1 where they had some real problems with Josh Allen as a dual threat quarterback. I went to that Rams game a couple weeks ago. I think the Rams won last week, but it's just the team is shredded roster wise. And there's just some matchups like this that they're just not gonna be able to keep up, even with Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua out there. My next one might surprise people as well. I'm going with the Falcons to cover in Minnesota. I think this is going to be a really close game. I think Kirk Cousins is the type of player that I trust to have 4 interceptions and then come back the next week and have 0 and bounce back a little bit. He is the veteran to do it, and there's got to be some kind of pride, some kind of chip on Kirk Cousins' shoulder. We've seen him just randomly rise up and have monstrous games. I think this is the week Kirk Cousins does it on the road in Minnesota and at least covers this 5.5 points field goal game or so. And then my final one, I had the Pittsburgh Steelers covering the 6.5 points in Cleveland, or I think Cleveland's coming to Pittsburgh. Another one that might surprise some people because everyone's on the Browns. I love the Browns. I love watching the Browns play football with Jameis Winston. It's like a completely different team versus watching them with Deshaun Watson. But I really feel like that Denver game 2 nights ago now was like their last gasp. Like that was their last chance to just put it all on the line. And now you get Pittsburgh, whose last bad performance was against these Browns a few weeks ago. I think they're going to have extra motivation, extra fuel, especially on the defensive side of the ball, to mess Jameis up. Here's a hot take for this game. Cleveland goes from 500 yards, 30-plus points last week through the air to less than 250 passing yards and less than 10 points this week against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and the Steelers win 21-10, something like that, and cover 6.5. So to go over them one more time, I got Chargers plus 2.5 points, but they're just going to win that game. Bengals minus 5.5 in Dallas. Bills minus 4.5 in LA. Falcons plus 5.5 points in Minnesota against the Vikings. And then the Steelers to cover against the Dog Pound in Pittsburgh, 6.5 points. Ooh, that was tough. I'm sick, by the way, y'all. I apologize.
Mike's playing hurt. We really appreciate that because I love having a chance to get together with my friends and talk about football and say things that are, ridiculous and don't really matter, but it's a good time. I want to say that the
vocals, Tony, the vocals, the brain is still completely fine.
There's something going on with the Rams where it's like they had 0 points in the first half of that game, scored all 21 against the Saints to win.
I didn't even see that.
I watched it. It's just something going on with the Rams offense where things just aren't clicking. Blake Corum had his best game as a Ram. Hopefully they can continue to lean on Kyron Williams and and Blake Corum to switch things around, and the Rams can get hot here in these final 5 games. And then I love ballsy pick, just money line Chargers. It's got to be good. That's got to be plus 225 right there, taking them. Okay, here we go. Mike, I'm going to disagree right off the bat with you.
Oh, boy.
What I saw from the Falcons is not good. And you got Cousins. You got Cousins coming back in this game against his Minnesota Vikings, Atlanta being there. I know that the Vikings are having trouble running the football a little bit. There was 2 fumbles last week from Aaron Jones, which kept that game maybe closer than it should have been. But I'm going to take the Vikings at home minus 4.5 as my first pick there. And I think that they're going to try and they're going to try and heat up Cousins a little bit and test that arm on some quick outs and maybe drop, some players in to some passing lanes and try and get some picks there. This next one, I don't feel good about this because it feels dirty to be betting on a game that it has number 1 overall pick implications, but I'm going to take the Titans over the Jaguars. Titans minus 3.5. They got down huge in that game, and they continued to fight, and they put up some points last week against Washington. I think at home that they're really trying to win games, and it just feels like the Jags are checked out, and that's fine. I get it. There's a lot of things going on. You got a coach that knows he's about to be unemployed. At least that's what it feels like. Cardinals at home. I'm going down with this Cardinal ship because we did the show 2 weeks ago, Mike, and I was like, yeah, Cardinals, it's a must-win game on the road in Seattle. And then you were like, well, I don't know, maybe they could steal the game in Minnesota. Kyler has had back-to-back games coming off the bye where he's thrown some terrible interceptions. And it's really rough to watch the way the offense is moving the football. And then all of a sudden he gets blitzed, panicked, and he's throwing up these punt type interceptions. Doesn't mean that I'm not gonna. I said I like the Cardinals 3 weeks ago. I'm not getting off the bandwagon. I think they find a way. They get home. They get right, and minus 2.5 for them. Then I'm going on the road for the Bears. They call it the interim bump, right? When the Bears are getting 4.5 points on the road in San Francisco. For me, it's more like the Bears have been close to winning. And I think that the defense was so upset. I know you're battling through there. The defense was so upset with where things were at. I think that there's a little extra motivation for them to be like, see, it was that guy, even though it's not. It wasn't just that guy. They have one of their best games of the season against a Niners team that is in disarray. And even if the Niners win, I still think they can keep it within 4.5 points. And then, Mike, where we agree this week, Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football. It's even if the Bengals know that their season is over, they are still a team that loves the bright lights. Jamar Chase wants to get out there and have another game where he goes for 225. And he's like, hey, if we weren't this bad, I'd be Offensive Player of the Year. And Joe Burrow would be the MVP if our defense, could stop a runny nose. And they can't do anything. It's so frustrating to watch the Bengals, unless, of course, they're playing the Chargers and you bought some expensive tickets and you're at the game and you're a Chargers fan, bolt up. Then you don't care that they can't stop anything. But you watch these other games and you're like, what is this? This is garbage. Okay, here we go. I got Vikings at home minus 4.5 over the Falcons. I got the Titans at home over the Jags minus 3.5. I got the Cardinals at home over the Seahawks minus 2.5. Bears on the road over the Niners plus 4.5. Bengals on the road on Monday Night Football minus 5.5 over the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys have won one game at home. It was on Thanksgiving against a Giants team that just looked the offensive line is going to get one of these quarterbacks hurt, and they pretty much already have. So
yeah, they already have.
Yeah, they've already.
It doesn't help the Cowboys either. They're a legacy team, so it just feels like growing up as a kid, there's just some extra special juice in beating on the Cowboys.
Yeah, especially in Jerry. He's cutting to the box, and he's always got papers. He looks like he's got like a play call sheet up there. And he's like, "That's not what I said to run." Rico Dowdle, though, showing a little bit of life on Thanksgiving. That's the one thing.
Rico. I liked watching him in camp and stuff too.
So one thing that worried me about making this pick is that if they can figure out the run game enough, that could be the thing that keeps the Bengals from running up the score a little bit there. Let's go to the game of the week as our Los Angeles Chargers head to Kansas City. And this isn't a must-win situation for the Chargers, but it feels like a must-turn-around situation. I text Mike a lot, and I don't ever really talk about it, but the one team that I will watch the all 22 of every week is the Chargers. And one of the most frustrating things that I've ever watched was the Chargers offense last week and the continued refusal to run the ball in the second half. I know the team is banged up and going through injuries. They did rally on a short week after a physical Monday Night Football game, and they were able to get the win, and that excites me to no end. But it's a lot of things are going to have to be different this week going to Kansas City than they were going to Atlanta last week. Kansas City with a couple extra days where, again, I know that people gave us the explanation, Mike, about what happened at the end of the Raiders game, but I am not a fan of two penalties were called simultaneously, a legal procedure or whatever it was, and a false start. And it's like, okay, but why does one trump the other? Why was one?
It's also BS. It's all complete BS because you can see clear as day in the footage. The ref has the whistle in his mouth, and right when the ball is snapped, even before the ball is snapped, the ref that you can see in visual image of the camera, while the fumble is attempted to be recovered, is running across the field, stopping the play. Yeah, blowing the play dead before the fumble is recovered. So to me, I don't care what was called first or what was called second. A referee blowing a play dead, even if you say it was an inverted whistle, the play does not count. This just happened with the Bengals and Raiders a couple years ago where they blew the whistle too soon and called Joe Burrow out of bounds, and he threw a touchdown pass when he was clearly inbounds, and that touchdown didn't count, but this fumble does count.
Yeah, it's frustrating. So even if you go to a situation where you're like, oh, like the clock is running and it's a foul on the offense, so it'd be an automatic 10-second runoff, and then all the Raiders will be able to do is spike the ball with loss of yards. I don't think Daniel Carlson makes the field goal, but it's just it bothers me that they don't even get a chance to kick it because the rule is for the Chiefs to just get the ball and end the game. Like, that's the part that's frustrating. I really hope that I can make it through and watch a game where even if the Chiefs beat the Chargers, it's not on some play at the end where you're like, oh, well, a pass interference. And it's like, but what about the other 15, 20 pass interferences you didn't call, but you call this one at the end of the game, or you get together and you pick up certain plays. It happened even when I was at SoFi earlier this year to watch the Chiefs beat the Chargers in that game. And so I'm going to talk about the game more than the penalties or anything else. As far as like, the Chargers in the first matchup, the game was close. I believe it was 10-10 or 10-7 in the third quarter at some point in that game. It was 10-10. Chargers had a chance to kick a field goal or go for it on like the 2-yard line. Chiefs defense makes a stand. They don't take the lead. Chiefs come back the other way, score a touchdown, win the game 17-10. In that game, no Derwin James because of the suspension in Pittsburgh. There's injuries to left tackle, right tackle. Herbert still got the ankle injury. McConkey wasn't quite on the same page, although he's battling through some injuries. So I think this is going to be a better test, a better assessment, a better challenge. And I'm really, really rooting 1,000,000% of everything in me for the Chargers to win this game. And I'm picking them to win this game. This just feels like there's something going on with the Chiefs where they just keep winning all these games. Like
it gets to a point where you start to think that it's no longer luck and that something's going on. Seriously, like I've always joked about them getting calls or this or that. This year has been atrocious to a point that I'm ready to see the freaking officiating crew completely outhauled. But the NFL would never do that. And when you go and look in history, they've almost never, ever fired an official. Are you telling me an official has never been bad enough to warrant firing in the history of the sport, or is something shady going on? Anyways, I think that the Chargers are a team that if we were at freaking full strength, we could make a statement in this game. They get so lucky, man. Like you said, the Derwin James suspension the other week on a play that was very questionable to even be a penalty to start with, right before we play the Chiefs. And now they're getting us without J.K. Dobbins, which we've seen the Chargers rushing attack is not fueled as much by the interior of our offensive line as it is as much J.K. Dobbins making someone miss in the backfield and getting some yak or yards after contact, as they say in receiver world. So I think that's a huge disadvantage for the Chargers. Our rushing attack is running straight up the middle. That's all we really can do with Gus Bus. He doesn't have the speed or agility that J.K. does to attack the edges. I don't think they believe in Kamani Vidal enough to give him some crazy, surprising workload this week out of the backfield. So the Chargers are probably going to be a team this week that looks a lot different than we've seen them offensively throughout the year with J.K. Dobbins on the field. And I think that may, in a way, help us a little bit. Might surprise the Chiefs. I think that we're going to throw the ball more than you want, Tony.
Yeah, I really hope not. I hope this is a classic, old-school Harbaugh. We're going to go up there and we're going to run the ball 40 times in this situation.
Depends on how we do inside, because it's just so tough with that being kind of the Chargers' offensive weakness to say, all right, now let's go and try and do it against Chris Jones. It's going to be tough, and I think that we're going to see kind of last year Herbert against the Chiefs, where he's the one that's supplementing the run game with screen passes and read options and pass options and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that this is if I'm looking at this Chiefs side of it, it's are they going to be able to get Isaiah Pacheco going, right? Is that feels like a real key for them to be extending drives that way, being able to keep Patrick Mahomes where he really excels in sort of those third and manageable, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4. Is the tackle situation going to hold up for them? Are they going to be able to get DJ Humphries, I believe that's his name, on the field this week? And then what kind of situation are they working with Noah Gray and Travis Kelce with right there? DeAndre Hopkins is going to probably make a couple of plays depending on who he's got out there. The guy's a Hall of Famer. He'll get out there and make a couple of plays. You can't really do much about that. Defensively, and you talked about it, is the interior of that defensive line. Are they going to be able to find some mismatches on Trey Pipkins? Are they going to be able to get after Zion Johnson? Although he's played a lot better for them recently, it's that side of it. And then in the secondary, where the Chiefs have had injuries and had a little bit more struggle this year because the defense hasn't looked great, especially when you watch that game against Bryce Young. You're like, Bryce Young is doing this with a rookie wide receiver and a veteran and Adam Thielen. They should be able to find different ways to get receivers open and have some success passing the ball in this situation. It's going to be interesting to see how Spagnuolo plays the Chargers offense, and then how the Chargers have said, hey, we haven't been running the ball a ton. Let's give them a bunch of looks that they haven't seen in this, come out in traditional passing sets. It's and from those, we're going to run the football. It doesn't have to be smash mouth as much as it has to be let's get a few carries to Darius Davis in some different situations. Let's get a couple of these, jet sweeps to Quentin Johnston. Let's find ways to get people on the outside on some tosses, sweeps, whatever it is, and press the edge, make the corners tackle. It doesn't seem like it's going to be snow, too cold, but I'm excited for it. Bolt up. I got the Chargers winning this game 19-16. Mike, you got a score?
I'm biased. I don't have a score prediction, but I'm thinking similar score, Tony. I think it's going to be a lot like the other game score-wise, where it's coming down to the fourth quarter, mostly a defensive battle. I really love the Chargers' ability this year on defense to buckle down and strap things up in the red zone. It's been so impressive. And even if the Chiefs move the ball a little bit with Pacheco, which I think they will, we've seen our rushing defense get worked on a little bit more in recent weeks. Even if they do get some stuff to DeAndre Hopkins and Kelsey as they move down the field, I have premium optimism. I have premium confidence in this defense now. When we get down to the red zone, we're stopping them to a field goal. And it's going to come down to, can the Chargers find enough offense to score like 20 points, I feel like.
Yeah, that's why I have it 19-16. I think it's a low-scoring game. I think that the Chargers.
What's the conversation though when the Chargers take them down? Like, they're going to be talking about this defense being that level, that special defense that can make a run. People are going to be saying it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I want to be positive and I want to be optimistic, but
Chargers 5-1, same record as the Chiefs in the last 6 games. Just pointing it out. I mean, the Chiefs have like 3 losses in that stretch. You know what I mean? It's all.
Oh, that's great. I love you bringing that energy, that optimism, right there. We appreciate you stopping by for another week of the Fifth Down NFL newsletter. Mike, what should they do? What should the people do? I need to get better at this. And
make sure they like the post. Make sure they subscribe to the channel. If you guys want to check out our characters right here, we have t-shirts, hats. Go check out fifthdown.shop. Pretty easy to go to. Link will be in the description as well, I hope. Or it's just fitdown.shop. Pretty easy to remember. But I think that's everything, Tony.
I just jotted it all down right there. It was that easy. Just make a couple of notes. Hope everybody has a great weekend. And hope all of your teams win. You know how it is. You know how we do math. 100% positivity equals only 50% of the teams can win. I don't know. I wasn't a math student. Appreciate you guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next week on the Fifth Down NFL newsletter. Peace.